I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and it was a bit disturbing. Yes, I would say it was disturbing because he grew up in a very nice, observant Jewish family, and he's very Jewish. But he tells me he wants to go explore. Let me take 6 months and travel the world and see different peoples and see different nations and see different religions. He's young, he is curious, and he wants to explore. And he wanted to know my opinion, and he especially wanted to know what are the prohibitions of going to explore other lands, other nations, and other religions. So I told him something which I'm going to tell you in a little bit, but I think it's important for us to I guess, explore this question, this dilemma. We claim that we have the Almighty's directives, His instructions for life, His instructions for self-perfection, for perfection of the world, for bringing the world to its purpose. We have it completely. We had national revelation, and we have the roadmap, we have the manual from Almighty God who spoke to us directly and conveyed his laws, his teachings, his instructions, his commandments, his Torah. But there's a lot of different peoples out there, a lot of different nations out there, a lot of different religions out there. And if you're born and you happen to have the great fortune of being born as a Jew and being trained and reared on the ways of Torah, you may have that niggling suspicion. Wait a minute, I was just born into this nation and this religion, but why not look elsewhere? Why not explore? Why not see what the lay of the land is? So I want to address this question in a fundamental way. It's very possible for lots and lots and lots of people to make grievous mistakes. There's safety in numbers, they say. There's the wisdom of the crowds, but there's also the folly of the crowds. And it's possible for an enormous body of people to make terrible mistakes and to live lives based upon beliefs that are false. And I'll prove this to you. So, the two largest religions in the world, the Christians and the Muslims, I think they're the largest. Certainly large. Each one has a billion plus adherents. Now you'll say, wait, Christianity, it's like 50 or 100 different religions. And Islam, there's the Sunnis and the Shiites and the Wahhabis and so on. Alawites, all these different groups and different sects and different clans. But we're going to ballpark it. We do this. We're comfortable. We're in the torch center. We can ballpark a little bit. But this part's definitely true. Each one of these two very large religions is mutually exclusive. Meaning the Christians, again, I'm not an expert, but this is from what I understand, they say if you don't believe what they believe, you are condemned to eternal damnation. You're in big trouble. You have to be a Christian, they say. And the Muslims, well, they say the opposite. They say, you got to be Muslim. It's the only way. It's the nation of Islam or the nation of sword. You're either with us or you are an infidel. So each one of these two is mutually exclusive. They can't both be right. And each one has a billion plus adherents. That's 1,000 millions or a million thousands. It's a lot of people. So we have conclusive evidence that at a minimum, there are a billion people who are living lives that are wrong. Because they can't both be right and they are mutually exclusive. We live in a world where there's more than 1 billion people that are making terrible mistakes. Now, the truth is they're both wrong. We'll get to that in a bit. But the point is that it's possible for billions of people to make severe mistakes. And again, there's a downside. Both of these religions are claiming that if you're not with us, you're in big trouble. You're going to face severe, eternal perhaps, consequences. Now, you're a young Jew and you're going to explore and you're going to sample. You have to realize it's feasible to dupe, to mislead, to deceive 1 billion people. It's been done. We have proof. So you're going to go and explore and sample. How do you know that you won't be duped too? Are you so sure that you will be able to see through the lies? Are you so convinced that you're impervious to deception? You're incapable of being misled? That's maybe one angle to answer this question. It's a very dangerous and fraught-ridden experiment to just explore and be sure that you won't be misled and deceived. And the consequences are very severe. But this is not what I told him. What I told him is the conversation that I had with the AI. I had a conversation with the AI. And I said to the AI, I don't remember which one it was. I said, well, suppose you take a standard issue human and they don't have a space suit and they don't have an oxygen tank. They're just like us, just walking. Maybe they have some clothing on, but the way you would be here on planet Earth. And you were dropped onto Mars. That was my question for AI. How long would you last? What's the life expectancy of a human without any extra protections on Mars? So it did some calculation and it said, I don't remember what it was, but it was like 2 seconds, 5 seconds. It was definitely less than a minute. You'd be incinerated. You'd be dead before a minute is over. Okay, well, what about Saturn? You'd be pulverized in a second. Well, what about Jupiter? You'd be incinerated in an instant, and so on. All the planets, you don't last very long. And then I said, this is how I know it's. I said, well, what about on Earth? And the AI, of course, it was hallucinating. He said, well, on Earth, it's 2 minutes. I said, is that the life expectancy on Earth? What's the life expectancy on Earth? It's 70 years. Richer countries with better nutrition and better healthcare, it's 80 years. So here's what I told my young friend. Imagine you're living on Earth, and it works. We have liquid water. We have an environment. We have the right balance of nitrogen and oxygen, all these different gases, and we have the clouds, and we have water. We don't need to terraform Earth. We have billions, trillions of species. You can live here perfectly for 70, 80, 90, 100 years. And you're going to say, you know what? I want to take a rocket ship and I want to go live on Saturn. So I'll travel for 50 years to get there. And then I'll get there and I'll terraform Saturn. And I'll develop all these systems where it will become like Earth. It's absurd. You have life here. And you know the life here works. And you could flourish here. And you can live here. And you have continuity here. And you don't need to do really anything. It's all a system that's working. It's a system that's proven itself. But there's so much smog. And we have global warming. climate change. And what's going to be with the Amazon, the lungs of the earth? People complain, but this is a planet where humans flourish. Why would you abandon a place where it's been proven where people can flourish to go explore unknown worlds that maybe, just maybe, there's some way to live there? I told him, we have a system, we have a religion, we have a way of life that works, that's proven itself for decades, centuries, and millennia. It's vibrant, it's flourishing, it's healthy. It has superb community. There's continuity. People find meaning in their lives. People have a direct connection with the Almighty. It's a society that works. You go to our communities, it's just most Americans can't fathom it. The average American doesn't even know their neighbors. People live these like isolated lives. Many of them, not everyone, of course. There's a lot of loneliness. People by themselves a lot. During the pandemic, it was like awful because people's social lives were so intimately connected to their work lives. There's a pandemic of loneliness. You go to our community, incredibly high trust society. People are healthy. People's relationships are strong, and there's stability and there's vibrancy and it's a beautiful society. It works. It's been proven. It's Lindy. Why would you say, let me go explore Saturn or Mars or Neptune? Maybe we could find some life there. That's what I told him when I spoke to him. And to his credit, he said, you know what? That's a good argument. To his credit. But is that alone enough? You could argue, well, there's other societies. I don't know, the Amish. It works. They also have a vibrant society. They have a way to flourish. And I don't know, the Mormons, there's lots of different groups out there. Who's to say that we're right? Who's to say that this is the best? So the truth is that our religion, our people, it's incomparable to any other. We have a claim. Our claim is that the Almighty chose us from all the peoples, from all the nations. He chose us because Abraham chose him. And he made a pact, a covenant with Abraham. You will be the father of my people. I will entrust your descendants with my Torah. They'll have the instruction manual for how to achieve personal greatness and how to bring the world towards its perfection, how to bring the entire world on board. Abraham chose God, and therefore God says, I will choose you. And Isaac continued when Abraham began. And of course, Abraham had one wing of his family that opted out. Ishmael, sons of Keturah, they opted out. But Isaac remained true. Same thing with Isaac. Jacob continued the tradition, continued the covenant. Esav opted out. And then Jacob has 12 sons, and they're all true to the path. And they have to suffer a lot to be ready to accept the Almighty's Torah. They have to experience 400 years of exile, of servitude, of oppression. But the religion, the people, get forged with miracles, with signs, with wonders that were witnessed by millions of people and were never challenged. What's the beginning, the genesis of our nation? Well, it's the story of the Exodus. 10 miraculous plagues, the death of the firstborn, the nation surrounded by their enemies, and the sea splits into walls of water, walkable dry paths. And what are they eating? Manna from heaven. And what are they drinking? Water that's coming out of a rock. And they're surrounded by clouds of glory that are cocooning them, that are enveloping them for 40 years. And there's the pillar of fire at night. And there's tons of miracles. The fire descends from heaven to consume the sacrifices from atop the altar. The earth opens up and swallows the rebels of Korach in his rebellion. It's a litany of unique and comprehensive miracles, the most unique and the most comprehensive miracles ever claimed by any people, by any nation, by any religion. And crucially, these miracles were witnessed by millions of people who received the book in which these miracles are detailed. The very people who experienced these miracles received the book, the Torah, that details these miracles, and no one ever challenged it. The miracles of the Exodus, the miracles of Sinai, the miracles of the wilderness were never challenged. And some may say, well, I watched the movie. Yeah, maybe there were some miracles, but it happened to Moshe, and maybe he persuaded. He was so charismatic. He was a cult leader. How do you persuade a nation that they ate manna for 40 years? Manna that dropped from heaven. They ate it for 40 years. That's like from the 80s. Millions of people received portions of manna twice on Friday. None of it dropped on Shabbos for 40 years. Drank water from a stone for 40 years. And the Torah stresses again and again and again and again that these miracles were witnessed by the nation, by the masses. Chapter 4 of Exodus, verse 30. When Moshe initially begins the process of the Exodus, he does signs. He does wonders. He performs miracles, le'enei ha'am, in front of the eyes of the nation. And the water, all the waters of Egypt turned to blood. Le'enei Paro, in front of the eyes of Pharaoh. Ule'enei Avadav, in front of the eyes of his servants. And the splitting of the sea, the Torah stresses, Vayar Yisrael, the nation saw it. Vayar Yisrael es Mitzrayim Mesas Fasiam, chapter 14 of Exodus, verse 30. The next verse, verse 31. Vayar Yisrael, Israel saw the great arm, the great hand of God, the great power and might of God. The sign of Revelation. If you watch the movie, Moshe gets the tablet. That's not what happened. Read the book. Chapter 19, verse 11 of Exodus. God is going to descend. This is before the Exodus. God's going to descend le'enei kol ha'am, in front of the eyes of the entire nation. Chapter 24, verse 17. The appearance of the honor of God was like a consuming fire atop the mountain, le'enei b'nei Yisrael, in front of the eyes of all of Israel. When Moshe descended down from the mountain for the third time, his face was aglow, was as bright as the sun. Vayar Aharon, chapter 34, verse 30 of Exodus. Aaron saw v'chol b'nei Yisrael, and the entire nation, a nation of millions of people, they all saw Moshe, and his face was aglow, and they were scared to approach him. The final verse of the book of Exodus, it talks about the presence of God in the tabernacle. There was a cloud above the tabernacle by day, and a fire at night. Le'enei kol beis Yisrael, in front of the eyes of the entire home, the entire family of Israel. Numbers 14:14. God appeared to us eye to eye. 33:3. The Exodus happened in front of the eyes of all of Egypt. The miracles, chapter 6, verse 22. The signs, the wonders that were done to Egypt, to Pharaoh and to his entire nation, le'einenu, in front of our very eyes. It's important to stress. Our nation was founded with miracles. What's the point of a miracle? A miracle, the point of a miracle is to show you that God is behind it. It's an act that defies nature. God, who controls nature, who created nature, is saying, I'm going to intervene and suspend nature so you know that this is me acting. All these miracles were experienced by millions and were never challenged. And the nation received the book, the very people who experienced these miracles received the book that again and again repeatedly details these miracles. And the nation adhered tenaciously to the book, to Torah. But the greatest miracle of them all is the most significant event in all of human history, revelation at Sinai. The entire nation, not just Moshe. Everyone experiences prophecy and lives to tell the tale. And again, we talk about the revelation very often here. It's an event unparalleled in the annals of human history. No other nation, no other people had a national revelation, had national prophecy. Moreover, the coup de grace. No other nation, no other people even claimed to have a national revelation, a national prophecy. This is the basis of our faith. You want to explore other religions? They're all poor imitations. In the words of the Rambam, if you see a person and you see a statue, they may have the same shape, but one's alive and one's dead. Our religion is alive. It's vibrant. It's pulsating. It's real. We had the unimpeachable proof. National revelation. Millions of people experiencing prophecy simultaneously. And again, I want to stress this again and again, no one ever challenged it. No other nation had it. No other nation even claimed to have had it. The reason why they didn't claim to have had it, wouldn't it be nice? If you were the founder of Islam and you wanted a lot of people to believe it, let's switch it. Let's make it national revelation. No, you can't do that. Because you cannot create a false narrative that involves millions of people. If it's just a small cabal of founders, we experienced the miracle, you got to trust us. Okay, well, I have no reason to not trust you. But if I wanted to persuade 1 million Americans that they experienced prophecy, I can't do it unless it actually happened. And the Torah stresses this point repeatedly because it's so important for us to appreciate it and to recognize the significance of this. Devarim, Deuteronomy, chapter 4. Raki Shamancha, be very careful. Ushmor nafshcha me'od, and scrupulously protect yourself. Pentishtach, lest you forget the matters asher ra'u einecha, that your eyes saw. Again, Moshe is speaking to the people whose eyes saw this. Your eyes saw this. The day that you stood before God at Chorev, at Sinai, you witnessed prophecy. And it's prohibited for you to forget it. You must reinforce this idea. Never forget what your eyes saw. It describes the whole sign of Revelation. And it retells the whole Ten Commandments. The book is very clear. Sinai was prophecy from God to the people, not just Moshe alone, God to the people, God to the nation. This is absolutely historical. There's no way to collude to perpetuate such a belief if it did not happen. It's like a fun thought experiment. Is it possible that Napoleon never existed and never conquered much of Europe? It's only 200 something years ago. It was made up. How do you know? There's no one alive that saw Napoleon. There's probably no one alive who saw someone who saw Napoleon. Maybe it's all a hoax. It's all a fabrication. We were all duped. Maybe it's a lie. Maybe it never happened. The reason why we know for sure that it happened is because there's no way to create such a falsehood. If it didn't happen, there's no way to spawn it, to spawn the belief in it. Alexander the Great, this is about 2,300 years ago or so. Did he live? Did he exist? Did he conquer much of the world? No one that you know saw him. You didn't see someone who saw someone who saw someone who saw someone who saw someone 20 degrees of separation who saw him. How do we know the events of the past happened? Did General Washington cross the Delaware? Did he preside over the Constitutional Convention in 1787? You never saw it. There's a mechanism. It's not possible to make these things up when they rely on millions of people colluding. It's impossible to falsify. Sinai was real. And no other people, no other nation had it. I like to make people very uncomfortable when I say the following thing I'm going to say. I have the privilege of having met all four of my grandparents. All four of them were Holocaust survivors. Now, my wife, her four grandparents were also, all four of them, Holocaust survivors. And all of them, all of our 8 collective grandparents, all of them had multiple relatives who were killed by the murderous Nazi regime. And it's very offensive and very infuriating when people deny the Holocaust. The Holocaust happened within living memory. In fact, my wife still has a grandmother who's still alive, who's a Holocaust survivor. She's deep into her 90s. She survived. She was from Vienna. She survived because she was part of the Kinder transport. She was a young girl, whisked away to England. And that's how she survived the war. But most of y'all were born after the events of the Holocaust. How do you know that it happened? How do we know? Prove it. It's an infuriating question. Well, we know the answer. There's a mechanism. When there's testimony of millions of people, we could rely on that. And the more people who testify, the more credibility that claim has. There's no way to falsify it. And there's so many people who testify to the events of the Holocaust, you have to be either evil or a fool to deny it. Guess what? The sign of Revelation has more credibility than the Holocaust, even though it's an event that happened many, many years prior. The sign of Revelation is an event that's 3,300 plus years old. And the Holocaust happened within the last century. But there are many more witnesses and much more testimony and more credibility for the sign of Revelation than for the Holocaust. It's impossible to deny this. There were millions of people collectively in a single event, all as one. And no one has ever credibly questioned it. Until very recently, there's no Sinai deniers. It's absolutely historical. If we had a book that recorded miracles about Abraham, and Moshe delivered us this book, we would say, well, Abraham happened, a few hundred years ago. How do we know it's true? If there's a book that details the miracles that happened to Moshe himself, for example, if the only miracle in the Torah was the events at the burning bush, the bush is on fire, it's not being consumed, and God spoke to Moshe, we would say, well, how do we know that's true? Maybe he's lying. But Moshe is giving a book delineating a vast array of miracles, a panoply of miracles that happened to the very people who received the book. And it's not a book of tales. It's a book of law. God spoke to Moshe saying, laws, laws, laws. And the nation fastidiously observed these laws until today. There's more evidence to the veracity and historicity of Sinai than any other historical event. And again, the coup de grace. Chapter 4 of Devarim. There's a challenge the Torah throws out. Ask, inquire. Go back in history, the days that were before you, from the day that God created man on earth, from one end of the heaven to the other end of the heaven. This is the Torah's challenge. It's an unbelievable challenge. All of human history, any place on earth, did such a great event happen? Oh, Hanishma Kamo, does something like this be claimed to have happened? Has anything like this been heard even? Is there ever another example of a nation hearing the voice of God, speaking from amidst the fire like you heard and live? The Torah is laying out this incredible challenge. And again, it's the coup de grace. The Torah is saying, in all of human history, since God created man until today, from any point of the earth, from one end of the heaven to the other end of the heaven, did such an event happen? Or was there even a claim for such an event that happened? That God spoke to the entire nation? As he spoke to you, and the nation survived? It's an incredible challenge. This is a singular event that's never been repeated, and there was never even a claim that it was repeated. Continues the verse. Were miracles like this done, where God came to take a nation from amidst the nation with signs and wonders and miracles, and with a war, and with a strong hand and an outstretched arm, and great, awesome signs like God did to you when he extracted you from Egypt? It's the second thing that never happened, and no one ever claimed to have such an event that happened. A nation amidst another nation. And with signs and wonders and a miracle, the entire nation is snatched out from amidst the other nation. Concludes the verse, chapter 4, verse 35. You were shown, you were shown to know. Ki Hashem hu Elohim, that Hashem is the God. Ein od milvado. There's no one besides for him. There's no power. There's no independent existence besides for him. Someone may be curious about other nations and other peoples and other religions. But it's imperative to remember this point. Be very careful not to forget this. Don't ever have this idea escape your consciousness. There's only one nation that has been born out of these miracles. Which other nation has the story of 40 years of eating manna? And the book is given to the people who experienced it? How do you make up a falsehood if you wanted to do such a thing like that? Why did no other nation have these miracles? Why did no other nation have sign of revelation? Our people, our nation, our religion is special, is unique, is unparalleled, is supreme. I want to add another point. We have such a rich and robust history. Prophecy on a national scale happened only once. But prophecy was an ever-present institution in our people for nearly 1,000 years after Sinai. It was a regular occurrence that great people achieved prophecy. In fact, there were institutions, there were academies to learn how to become a prophet. We actually even have a book today. We have a manual, a complete manual for how to achieve prophecy. It's very easy to learn the manual. It's much, much harder to actually do it. The manual is called Chapters of the Fathers. Pirkei Avos, Ethics of the Fathers. If someone follows every single one of those instructions, they will become a pious person. It's the path to piety. And piety leads to prophecy. Now, to be fair, there's different levels of prophecy. How many levels of prophecy are there? Like effectively infinite. An infinite level of prophecy. Only Moshe had the prophecy of Aspaklaria Meira. It's the highest level of prophecy. Temporarily, the entire nation had that level of prophecy. But that's a one-off event. We have the names of 48 prophets who perpetuated prophecies to us that we can still read today. 48 male prophets, 7 female prophetesses. But we also have documentation of legions of individual prophets. More than double the amount of adult men who departed Egypt. So meaning more than 1.2 million prophets. But not every prophet had prophecy that was for universal consumption. Every town, every city would have a prophet, and that would be a place for individuals to find individual guidance for themselves. But it wasn't necessarily written like the book of Isaiah and the book of Ezekiel and so on, Jeremiah. For hundreds of years, our people, we had a pathway to prophecy. And when formalized prophecy went extinct with the beginning of the Second Temple era, there were lower levels of prophecy, something called Ruach HaKodesh, poorly translated as the Holy Spirit. That is still present today. In the times of the Talmud, there was a level of prophecy called a bas kol, which is a lower level than what's known as kol, which is a more higher level of prophecy. Even once formalized prophecy ended, there were lower levels of prophecy that are still ongoing. For example, there's a low level of prophecy called a visitation from Elijah. Like Arizal, how did he learn all of his secrets? It was taught to him by Elijah. And there are hundreds of documented instances of visitations from Elijah. If someone is so worthy, they're so purified, they're so elevated, they're so refined, they're so pious, they're so righteous, they are worthy of having a visitation from an angel. Elijah is a prophet who transitioned to becoming an angel, but he never passed, so he's able to come back. The last documented instance of a visitation from Elijah that I'm aware of happened within living memory. It's been thousands of years since we got the Torah, but we still today have the Almighty's instructions for achieving something absolutely stratospheric, for taking a human and turning them into an angel. More precisely, the process of Torah is to take an animal, someone who is very instinctive, very impulsive, has all sorts of bad character, has all sorts of shortcomings, character defects, flaws, and turning them into a proper human, refined, dignified, elevated. But that's not where it ends. The Torah takes someone from being like an animal, really, a body first. You care about your body, that's it. To start caring about your mind and your soul and your eternal existence. And the next level is take a human and turn them into an angel. And that's still possible today. Low levels of prophecy are still feasible today. Everyone knows the grasshopper story. It happened very recently. The great sage was studying a difficult part of the Torah that talks about the anatomy of certain grasshoppers, and there was no picture. There was no picture of what this animal looked like. And then a grasshopper jumped in his book. Jumped from the window to the windowsill to his book. And he was able to examine the grasshopper. When someone says you're a great sage, of course, this is not even an insight to me. It's obvious. The great Rabbi Yosef Cairo, the author of the Shulchan Aruch, it's documented. Whenever he would open up a book to read a citation, he would always open up to the correct page. You have a book with 500 pages and you need a certain citation, he would always open up the right page. Always. We have books from him, some of the most important books in all of history. Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, where he distills all of the Talmud and all of the writings, everything into direct, clear instructions of practical halacha. You don't need to be an expert all of Talmud to know how to behave as a Jew. These incredible tomes that he wrote. Beis Yosef. Today it's published in 32 volumes. Unbelievable. Kesef Mishnah, an entire commentary on all of Rambam. But he has another book. Magid Meisharim. It's the records of the Torah insights taught him by an angel. Every night, the angel appeared to him and taught him Torah. All this is possible because we have the Almighty's Torah. We have it, and others don't have it. We have it, and only we have it. We have to appreciate this. But even if we're not thinking about prophets and prophecy and these incredible levels, the one thing that is emblematic on all of those people who are righteous and fortunate enough to immerse themselves in the Almighty's holy Torah, there's one characteristic that is universally present, and that is a convergence of scholarship and character refinement. And this is something that I know, and it's obvious to me because I know dozens of people like this, hundreds of people like this. Also sages, scholars, people of dazzling intellect, sharp intellect. Nothing sharpens the mind like the study of the Almighty's Holy Torah, the Talmud, nothing. There's nothing that parallels it. But also being so refined, having such resplendent character. And you meet a person and you don't see people like that, where they're also a titanic intellect and they're gentle and they're pious and they're kind and they're good and they're sweet. And the more you get to know them, the closer you get to them, the more you discover about their incredible gentleness of soul, gentleness of character, refinement. Where do you see that? Who creates such a person? That's the Torah. The Almighty gave us. He's telling us this is my gift, the greatest gift. The angels, when they saw Moshe in heaven, what's an earthling doing amongst us? Why is there someone born to a woman doing? He's so out of place. What's Moshe doing with the angels? And God said, I'm giving him the Torah. He's going to take the Torah and teach it to the nation of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. What? The greatest treasure. The treasure that has been in your treasure house for 974 generations before the world was created. Ve'ata mevatsha litna lebasav adam, and you want to give it to flesh and blood? It's the greatest treasure. And the Almighty gave it to us. And the proof is in the pudding. The people that even today, and again, I know hundreds of such people, literally hundreds, scholars, sharp, sharp minds, and so refined, and so kindly, and so selfless. Where does it come from? That is the secret of this treasure. My grandfather used to say that if the nations, if they had a personality like the Rambam, like Maimonides, they would instantly deify him. Because you can't fathom a person to be so great. I used to try to calculate or try to guesstimate how many people would it take to recreate the writings of the Rambam. I used to say, you need 10,000 people working for 10,000 years. And one person does it, who's living in a cave, hiding from the Almohad Muslims who want to kill every Jew. Where do you see an example like that? We know the answer. Jews never wanted to deify. Not Moshe and not the Rambam. If you have the Torah, it's the instruction but to take an animal, someone who's animalistic and impulsive and grounded in bad character and living like a body with the temporary world as the only thing that matters. Turn that into a human. Then take that human and turn him into an angel. I imagine if the nations had the Chafetz Chaim, they would do the same. If they had the Chazon Ish, they would do the same. One of the great privileges of life is to have an opportunity to meet such a person, to meet someone who's an example of the Torah applied. And you meet these people, and have some people like this in my family, literally family members of mine. And you examine every part of their life, and you're trying to find there's got to be some selfishness there. There's got to be some bad character. Everyone has bad character, right? You can't find it. And the more you look, the more you realize this is just a phenom. And it's not a phenom. This is applied Torah. And if you meet such a person and you get to know them, you know for sure that the Torah is divine. You've seen an example of someone who's been transformed. They're a different person. There's no other system that does that to a person. So there are young people out there who are curious, who want to explore, who are restless. And I would advise them, be very careful what you do. Don't think that you're so clever that you can't be misled. There's billions of people who are misled. But take a very, very, very close look at your own heritage. Jews have such a deep connection to the Almighty and His Torah. It has to be balanced out by an equally powerful desire to reject it. Otherwise, there's no balance, there's no free will. So it's counterintuitive, but the people that are most connected to God Almighty and His Torah are also, they're afflicted by a revulsion to it. There's something repelling them from it. It's very important to know just about how special your people are, your nation is, your religion is, how unparalleled it is. Which other nation has this bevy of miracles at its founding? Which other nation has had a national revelation? Which other nation has this continuous, unceasing line of giants? Which other people, which other system produces people of such distinction and refinement? There's so much life here. There's so much vibrancy here. Why are you so insistent on traveling to Saturn or to Mars? It's very important for us to realize what we have. A lot of things that you heard today, you knew. But it's important, like the Torah tells us. Never forget it. Be very careful. Be very, very scrupulous and vigilant, lest you forget this, or lest it departs from your consciousness even for a second. Don't overestimate your ability to be able to walk away and come back. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Appreciate what you have. How fortunate are we? Ashreinu matov chakenu. Praiseworthy is us, we say. How fortunate are we? How goodly is our portion. What a privilege. What an incredible privilege. Thank you for listening to these messages. I want to hear your feedback. I want to hear your take. I want your questions. I want your comments. And if you want to send them my way, you know how to do it. RabbiWolbe@gmail.com.